Welcome into Jets Nation Radio. I am Goose, joined by Ray Howe as always. Before we get to him, gotta shout out our good friends at Betway. If you are one of our Ontario listeners, go bet with Betway. It's a great time. You got to be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. And that's all I really got to say. Go check out Betway if you're in Ontario. Ray, how are you doing this week?
I'm not doing too well. The Jets have kind of had a little bit of a slump here this past couple of games, and it's been a little bit frustrating after seeing the team that we had like just weeks ago and seeing them not be able to pull out some wins. So definitely not doing too hot today.
Yeah, man, it is. It's been a rough week because last week we're like, man, this team might even be able to go on a perfect record, but we'd be content with a 2-1 record or 2-0-1 record, and we got to see a total of three Jets goals in the last three games. And really, it could have been just one. The way that UC Soros was playing the against the Jets in Nashville. So this team is so snake bitten right now. What needs to change?
I think they need to change the lines. Like I think that we saw this with Bonus where he was putting the lines in a blender a little bit. There was a lot of new line combinations, but I think they really need to sit down and evaluate all the lines and figure out something there because obviously the offense was snake bitten. Like again, like they were doing a lot of things to make scoring chances and they just weren't going in. But I think they really need to evaluate how their lineups going forward will be. I know Nemestikov might be injured as well, so it might be good to see Gustafson back in the lineup. But again, we saw Velarde back, which was a really great thing to see. They limited his minutes, just coming back from that injury that took 6 months to recover, or not 6 months, 6 weeks to recover from. And I think seeing more of Gabe Velarde, even though he took a rather unfortunate penalty to seal the Jets' fate last night, I think that seeing him for more minutes could have a bigger impact.
Okay, we got to talk about that penalty that was called on Velarde last night because it was holding the stick, but McDavid was holding his arm to make that infraction happen. And big crybaby McDavid there whining to the refs when both teams were really benefiting from the lack of calls by the refs. And it's just a stupid one that cost the Jets. Now, the Jets have been playing poorly, I'd say, for the last 10 minutes of the game, but yeah, it's just frustrating when the face of the league can whine and bitch his way to a victory.
Yeah, and like it wasn't even like he was holding the stick either. It's like McDavid put his arm, like they kind of like locked arms, and then when McDavid tried to get free, he let go of the stick, and then the ref called it. So it wasn't like your traditional like glove on the stick holding the stick penalty. It was like the stick got kind of lodged in between them, and then when McDavid left that kind of scrum together, that kind of when they were entangled together, the stick kind of stayed with Velarde, and then they call it. So again, like you can't blame the games on the refs, you can't blame it on one call, but I feel like the Jets needed more offense in that game. They had that one power play where they looked really good, they scored a goal, but besides that, in the beginning of the third period, there wasn't really great stretches of offensive consistency where they were getting really great chances. And I feel like against the Edmonton Oilers, you can't really sit back and with a lead. You need to really continue to put on pressure.
Well, yeah, and it looked like they were trying to emulate the Dallas Stars game from Tuesday night, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, why are you guys trying to lock down a similar game like this? You're not playing a defensively sound team. You're playing a team that's going to give you all of the offensive firepower that you can. And the reason why Dallas succeeded was because they scored that last goal of the night. They were up 2-0, where the Jets were like, yeah, we got this thing locked down. Let's just play a defensive minded game against Connor McDavid. Like, I don't know what on earth they were thinking, but they should have been chasing for that second goal, and that was their biggest flaw. And you're right, they were inconsistent for the majority of the game. What was the final shot total for them? 26? 26-30, somewhere in there, but they were definitely outshot by the Oilers. Like,
Yeah.
you know, fine. It's fine that you guys can block everything, but the Oilers special teams, you can't try to run and gun with them. So yeah, it's just very frustrating that they're not doing what they need to do.
Yeah, the shots in that game were 26 for the Jets to 38 for the Oilers. So again, like I feel like you need to be more consistent in the offensive zone when you're playing against the Oilers because at any moment, like Connor or Leon can just take over a game, and we kind of saw that tonight where one play where Connor Hellebuck isn't standing on his head, and within like the last 10 minutes of the game, you go from feeling that you've locked down a game to now you lost the game. And I feel like you can't really do that against the Oilers. You need to keep putting on the pressure, keep forcing them to play defense, and that's how you win games. And that's what Dallas was able to do, where you're able to lock down defense, but you also are able to apply pressure offensively. And I feel like the Jets did half the battle in that. And once it kind of got later, they weren't as focused on the offense. There was a lot of dumps in, not a lot of carries over the blue line. And I feel like, again, one player that I would love to see get more opportunity, and he's gotten that, is Ehlers. He's one of those guys that, with the speed and transition he has, I feel like that's the one player that's going to be key for the Jets going forward in that rush opportunity chances.
Yeah, how did you like him with the top line last night?
I think he worked really well. I think that those three guys, like just all the skill combined between all three of them, like it's going to be too hard for teams to contain like two of them, let alone Ehlers on top of that. I'm not saying that Ehlers full time, like you can't move him off that line now, but again, it's nice to see lines that we haven't seen before. Like this is a line that we haven't seen before, and seeing Ehlers with those guys, like if again, like when difficulties come, it just gives Jets fans knowledge that like, hey, if say we're down by a goal, Bonus can always throw Ehlers up to that top line if they're down, like need some offense. And I feel like that line can get some offense real quick for you if you're in the offensive zone. So again, it's gonna be interesting to see how the lines shake out. But I feel like Ehlers for the time being is really good on that first line.
Honestly, I think that he only needs to play about 20 minutes a night with Scheifele and Connor. You know, start off your first period with that line together, end your game with those three together. Like they're not a grinding team or a grinding line, but they are just so intelligent with making those passes. But you for the second period, you kind of need you need to grind it out. You need to make them feel it. But if that first line of Ehlers, Connor, and Scheifele can work together, find a goal early on or late in the game, that's where I think that line is going to truly succeed. So I don't know, maybe you find Iafallo or Velarde on the top line for the majority of the game and Ehlers, start and end the game.
Yeah, I'd almost have Ehlers on that top line, but I wouldn't have him on the top power play. I feel like having him on the second power play to help out, like I think the power play looked really well in the Edmonton game. Again, they couldn't capitalize on every power play that they had, but I really like that power play of Ehlers, Connor, Scheifele, or no, Ehlers wasn't on it, but Cole Perfetti, Velarde, and Morrissey. I think that a lot of that they all have really good hockey IQ, and they're all threats to shoot. Like there's not a single person on that power play where you think, oh, they're just gonna pass like a Nick Backstrom. Like they're all threats to score, and that's what the power play needs to be.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, Rick Bowness talked about Cole Perfetti. The fact he doesn't generally stand in front of the net, but he's so smart that he knows that he can just cruise on up and find a puck just to tip it in. So yeah, there's just so much intelligence on that top power play that yeah, definitely either should be on the second one. Nate Schmidt though, I that one pass that he made, I believe it was to Velarde, where just the dude should have shot. And like that's a big thing right now with the Jets. They just need to fire some pucks on the net.
Yeah, I feel like the Jets are kind of looking for like a perfect play, almost like again, like I'm not sure like if that's part of the structure on that, but like again, like I feel like some of the players need to go back to some of the basics of just getting the puck on net, like get the basics of getting pucks in the net because good things happen when the puck hits the net. Like there's not going to be anything that is positive when you do a slap pass and it goes all the way out of the zone because it misses.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the Jets really need to go back to basics. And then I feel like Cole Perfetti is a really good example of this. I feel like he was a person that was passing a lot, was always looking for that perfect play at the beginning of the year. But I think that like coming into these like last couple games in his goal streak, I feel like he was looking for the right play, but he was also knowing when the right play was to just get the puck to the net. So I feel like a lot of more players need to kind of emulate what Cole Perfetti is doing in understanding when to make that play and when to make the shot.
It's funny because like every time that the Jets stop playing just a basic ass game of hockey and they start being a couple of fancy guys, that's when things start to fall apart. We saw it exactly the same time last year. And really, it's just frustrating that this team doesn't play a basic game of hockey on a regular basis. And it's what's ultimately affected them. There's too much IQ in this team almost where they feel like they can do fancy stuff on a regular basis where it's just like, guys, just play a simple ass game. If you look at Kyle Connor last night, early on, what did he had? Was it three breakaways? I can remember two for sure. And
Yeah,
that's
he
just where
definitely
you're
had
just
two.
like, Kyle Connor firing on the net, doing his thing, being in the right place at the right time. And just for some reason, you can't beat Stuart Skinner for some reason. Frustrating. And face-offs. The team can't win a face-off to save their lives right now. What was it? 33% in the
I think it
face-off
was
dot?
less than that. I think it was 29%.
No way it was under 30%.
Yeah, I think Bonus in the post game was saying that Edmonton was at a 71%, and that's the main reason why they lost the game. Like when you're losing that many faceoffs and having to chase the game when they get possession of the puck, it feels like a broken record. I feel like we've been talking about the Jets faceoffs on this since I've joined, and it's just been something that is constant. Like again, like going back to how I wanted Jonathan Taves on the team. I feel like the team really needs to address how their faceoffs are. Bonus was kind of downplaying it, saying like, "Oh, it's just a bad day. It will get better." But I feel like they really need someone that is consistent in that faceoff circle because, again, faceoffs may not seem like an important aspect of the game, but it can be the deciding factor on if you win or lose. I feel like if the Jets were 50-50 in the faceoffs this game, they could have had a chance at winning. And I feel like having someone that can win faceoffs in important moments on the power play or the penalty kill can be the difference on many wins in the season and even making the playoffs or not.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, even if you're not affected by the face-offs in the regular season, you have to win face-offs to be a great playoff team. And really, every conversation that I've seen is the Jets are painfully slightly above average. And like and it's the same team that we're looking at basically as last year. Yes, there's been changes because every team needs to go through changes throughout the offseason, but to keep your defensive core the exact same, and I can argue that that was what your downfall was last year. What needs to be the shakeup here for the Winnipeg Jets?
Yeah, I think that it's kind of difficult looking at a shakeup. I feel like you want to make a trade, but you also like again, like trades are Chevy's thing. Like you're always confident in Chevy's ability to make a trade, but then you look at the team and you're wondering where do you upgrade? Like again, like a second line center that would be really good on the faceoffs would be really great. A top a top four right-handed defenseman would be really great as well. But then you look at the team and what players you would potentially have to trade out, including someone like Nate Schmidt, and then probably a forward in the NHL roster like a Morgan Barron maybe or someone else like that. And then you're thinking like, oh, maybe I don't want to trade those players to upgrade. And then you're looking at the future and then you're looking at trading future assets that potentially can make an impact on the other team and picks. And then I feel like the Jets are kind of in this really like just not great area where you're either trading NHL players that you don't want to trade, or you're trading prospects that you don't want to trade, or you're trading away picks that you don't know if they're going to be like they could be like a 15th overall pick. Like there's no guarantee that the Jets stay consistent for the entire year. So I think they're just in a sticky situation where they can't really do anything and really just need to believe in themselves as a group and really pull themselves together out of this kind of mushy, slightly above average to really becoming contenders.
Yeah, and I think you need to, and I hate to say this from the bottom of my heart, but you need to trade, I think, someone like Nikolai Ehlers. Listen, the guy is a heart and soul player. You want to keep guys like that around. But if your top six hasn't changed that much, like I know that there's already been some big changes there, but we're seeing the exact same thing from last year. Jets are getting grade A shots. The forward group is trying to defend, but they're not doing a great job. And something needs to give. And I think Nikolai Ehlers is that piece. I don't know, but there's something frustrating with that top six. And we've talked about the defense how many times. It's like Nate Schmidt, Brandon Dillon, hell, even at this point, Neil Pionk or Dylan DeMello might need to be those pieces because I just haven't been impressed with DeMello's game so far this season. It feels like he's a rock with Josh Morrissey almost.
Yeah. And one thing on the Ehlers thing as well is Ehlers only has 2 years left in his contract as well. He has this year and next year. So it may not be the worst to move on from Nick Ehlers, especially because someone in the system by the name of Brad Lambert is someone that I feel like has a lot of the transition and skating skill that Ehlers has. And he's also right-handed too, and that's something that the Jets don't really have a lot of in the top six. You have Velarde and Scheifele, and I think those are the only two top six players that are right-handed. So I feel like I wouldn't trade Ehlers this year, but maybe at the draft or sometime next year in a big kind of like a big trade, not like the Kachuk for Huberdeau like magnitude, but someone where like maybe trading Ehlers and blank for a right-handed defenseman that's legitimate, like a top four, maybe even a top two right-handed defenseman, and someone else that maybe helps your bottom six in the swap that really helps both teams. Maybe the Islanders with Ehlers for Pulock and then maybe a couple other assets intertwined. But again, Ehlers is someone that he's a really great player and really great transition. And I wouldn't trade him this year just because I don't see anyone else that is able to carry the puck through the neutral zone with the speed and transition that he has. And I feel like even if he's not putting up the points, there's that transition is going to be difficult to replace for the Jets.
Oh yeah, it's definitely huge. But if you're trading, if you are going to trade Nikolai Ehlers, you have to be certain about Brad Lambert coming in and being able to be that transition guy. Still crushing it in the A, but next year is his time to shine within the NHL. So yeah, just frustrating to watch this team. And I mean, how do you truly support Connor Hellebuck at this point? Because that dude stands on his head game in and game out, and the dude looks like a Vezina Trophy winner this year, or at least within the last 5 games, he looks like a Vezina caliber goaltender once again. So, where's the support for this guy?
Yeah, I don't know. Like again, like at the very beginning of the season, it was kind of shaky for him. Like he had a below a 900 save percentage. His record was only like a 5-4-1. But then looking at the games recently, like he's been really good. Like he had like I think they were saying on the broadcast that he had like a 2.16 goals against average in his last 6 games and like a 920 something save percentage. And again, it's almost like a tale of two teams. At the very beginning of the season, they were getting more offense, but they weren't getting the goaltending. And now they're getting the goaltending from Hellebuck, albeit not from Lawrence Lassalle, which would be nice to see. But they're not getting the offense anymore. So it's like you can't have both things. You can't have the goaltending and the offense working at the same time. And I feel like that's the issue that the Jets are facing right now. It's being able to have overall consistency in defensive play and offensive play. It's you get one, but most likely when you're getting one, you're not getting the other one.
Yeah, but I feel like we're gonna see this consistency out of Connor Hellebuck from here on out. Like the dude is in his game. He might have a stretch where it's like, oh, okay, classic Connor Hellebuck. But yeah, if the offense can't figure out how to find the back of the net, like what's the point of doling out arguably one of the best goaltenders in the NHL? Like I think this year, if you omit his first 10 games, he's been the best goaltender of the NHL this year.
Yeah, and it's difficult because when you have a goaltender of that skill and that compete level that Hellebuck has, like he saved 36 shots this like against Edmonton, and Edmonton, of course, like they've had a rough start, but they have Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and I'm not sure if even Connor McDavid got like an assist. Like you didn't even like they did a pretty good job limiting Connor McDavid's chances, but again, like Hellebuck can only do so much. Like I think this really brings back one of the my like I don't know who said the quote, but like goalies can't really score goals. Like they're not really they can't really change how they can control what they can control. Like they can prevent the puck from going in the net, but they can only do so much in helping a team win. And if there's no offensive consistency to support their amazing run, like having a 970 save percentage can mean nothing if they're not winning the game.
Yeah, if you can't score goals, what's the point of having the elite talent behind you? Um, yeah, I'm just perplexed by this team because everything on paper is going correctly. It's just no goals, and I think that the Jets, I don't want to say they need a shakeup, and I don't want to be one of those guys who's like, well, obviously the common denominator here is Rick Bowness, but sure feels like the common denominator here for the Jets is Rick Bowness.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird in that way too, where you look at the record of when Rick Bowness was the coach and when Scott Arniel was the coach, and you see such a difference. Like at the very beginning of the year, like the Jets had a little bit of struggle, and then he left, and then they kind of went on a run. I think with Scott Arniel, he was like 9-2-2, and now when Bowness has returned, he's what won one or two games and then lost four.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah,
And
so
and I mean, like, even you go back to the first game when he came back against Tampa Bay, it wasn't a good game by the Jets. It was sloppy once again. So I don't know why, but there's something going on where with Rick Bowness being the guy. And maybe it's okay to say, okay, Rick, sorry, like we'll keep you around, but like you're getting pushed to the side. Arneal's our guy.
yeah, and I feel like at that point, like that's the kind of change that they might need to progress forward as well. Like it may not be just on the players, it may be on the personnel behind the scenes as well.
Yeah. Um, but I do want to talk about one of the good things that Rick Bowness did where he still kind of got screwed. Goaltender interference is beyond frustrating at this point. Tuesday night against the Dallas Stars, Hellebuck takes a high stick, and it's a good goal. Why do you think there's so much inconsistency with goaltender interference calls?
Yeah, I think the goaltender interference is it's always going to be a conversation today going forward. It's never going to be not a conversation just because of this like one play is not like similar to another play at all. Like the every play is kind of its own play, and it's up to the discretion of the league and the refs at the that are refing the game that make those decisions. Like, and when a ref doesn't see a play, they don't see it happen. Like again, that kind of happened with the Morrissey interference that didn't get called. But again, the ref's never going to be a perfect. It's never going to be perfect. You can't really assume that they're always going to get the right call. And I think that you could show a play one back-to-back nights, and one could be a goal and one could be no goal. So I feel like the consistency again. I feel like this has been like this whole podcast has just been about consistency, and I feel like there's little consistency with goaltender interference, and I feel like that's something that they need to look into as in the league because having so many discussions about goaltender interference and feeling that some teams get better calls, some teams get screwed by them, some teams get benefited by them, I feel like is not something you really want going around the league because again, a goaltender like one goaltender interference call can affect if you win or lose the game depending on it. And if it's consistent, then you're okay with it. Like if it's like this call gets called no goal every single time, you're fine. But if you see it get no goal and then you play your next game and then the exact same play happens and they score and it's allowed, you're gonna be like, what just happened? So I
Oh
feel like
yeah,
there's gonna be needs that consistency.
Yeah, you really do need that consistency from the NHL, and I think that they need to clearly define it. And obviously, there needs to be a little bit of leeway because you can't just be like, well, if you touch a goaltender in the blue paint, that's a no goal. Like, you can't go back to that '90s model of goaltending interference. But at the same time, you need to be like, if you touch a goaltender, like I don't want to say no matter what, but if you touch a goaltender when he's in his paint, intentionally or unintentionally, it's a good goal, or it shouldn't be a good goal. So I'm just kind of perplexed by the lack of reasoning from the NHL and the fact that the referees and Toronto don't need to tell the opposing team why that was or was not a good goal. Like that's the most arbitrary thing about the NHL. It's just like, why are you guys making that the rule? The referees should be able to confidently explain themselves to not just the coach, but also the fans. Like, tell us exactly why it was not a good goal. Because I don't want to be leaving the rink being like, the hell just happened, and then Rick Bowness having to be like, I don't know, man, did my job, and apparently I was wrong.
Yeah, and I think like I feel like that Dallas goal that was reviewed for goaltender interference, like I feel like it's all like discretionary. Like I feel like they look at that play and they're like, okay, is Connor Hellebuck being affected in making the save? And then their decision basically means he wasn't affected. But again, like it's their discretion, so I feel like there's got to be some type of like review or look at it because again, like that stick was there that hit Hellebuck and then it goes into the net and then they're saying, oh, it would have gone in regardless. And then, but you don't really know that it would have been regardless if that play never happened. So
Yeah,
it's something that's really inconsistent to say the least.
it really is. And I mean, like, you just look at the fact that it's happened twice against Dallas where we've had a goal go against us. We have to go on the power play. Last year when Hellebuck lost his helmet for a good 5-6 seconds there, and no whistle, and oh yeah, no, it's a fine goal. Winnipeg get in the box. Like, come on, guys, just give us just a little bit of hope here. Dylan Samberg, 100 NHL games. How have you felt about young Samberg?
I feel like he's been progressing pretty good. I feel like you kind of wish there was a little bit more, but again, like he's doing really good for being only 100 games in the league. Like he's been really good defensively. Um, in his first season, like his first season was only in 2021, 2022, and he had 5 points in those games, and I think it was a really good audition to see like, hey, maybe Sandberg has some offense to be had if he kind of develops that. And that's something we can maybe even see in his next 100 games as well, is kind of seeing how Sandberg kind of transition his mostly defensive game right as of the time being into maybe more of a two-way kind of balanced approach to maybe being like a defenseman that scores maybe 20 points a year and kind of really good defensively. But again, like he's been plus in every season that he's been. I know plus minus is a stat that's kind of arbitrary where not a lot of people respect it. But again, like being a positive differential on the ice when you're there is something that's overall positive. Like it shows that you're having an impact on the game. And he's a plus 17 right now. Like again, for set only 100 games in the league, I feel like that is pretty well good. And he has 18 points in 100 games. Like I feel like he's progressing really well, and I feel like it's only the sky's the limit for Sandberg. And I feel like kind of balancing that offensive and defensive game while getting more responsibility is going to be key in the next 100 games for Sandberg going forward.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah, I mean, I said it, I think last year. I think that he's going to be a top 5 defender in the NHL within the next 5 to 7 years. So I still got that faith that he's going to be. We're going to be talking about elite defensemen coming into Winnipeg and hopefully never leaving. I mean, Josh Morrissey, obviously a number one, definitely a number one defenseman in the league. He does need a right shot partner, and hopefully we get that one of these days. Because at this point, I'd rather trade a potential first round pick to try to find someone for good old Josh Morrissey. Classic running back to bitching about it, but I do love me some Dylan Samberg. All right. Next 3 games, we got the Blackhawks, the Hurricanes, and the Avalanche. How are you feeling over the next 7?
I would say I'm a little bit more confident, but after the games we've kind of seen from the Jets recently, I feel like that these games are going to be really important in kind of seeing what the Jets deal with adversity. Like they had a really good long winning streak, and then now they're kind of on a little losing skid. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to those games. So I'm optimistic that they're able to find their game, but again, if they continue to slide, like they're not guaranteed a playoff spot right now. Like they're third in the Central, but I think the Blues are only 1 point behind them now. Like the teams below them are winning games, so the NHL isn't really a league where you can afford to really coast. You really need to bring it to these teams. So I'm gonna predict that they win against the Blackhawks and the Avalanche, but lose against I don't remember the other team you said, but
Hurricanes.
they're gonna lose against the Hurricanes.
Ugh. Well, a loss to the Hurricanes would definitely help my fantasy team out because holy smokes, I am getting my ass beat this year in fantasy. It's not even fun. I've won 1 week. I'm so disappointed in myself. But yeah, I think the Jets beat Bedsy and the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, the amount of turmoil with that team this season, my goodness, those guys are not having any fun. Also, a ton of injuries to Chicago. The Canes, yeah, I mean that could be one of those games that goes back and forth. It could be an all-out war, or it could be a 1-0 final, and that's that. So excited for the Hurricanes game and the Avalanche. I also don't have a whole lot of faith, but the good news is the teams that are ahead of the Jets lost last night, so maybe there's a chance that the Jets can come back, or at least Dallas lost last night. I don't know about. Oh yeah, and so did the Avalanche, but they got an extra point for the overtime. Yeah, I'm saying 1-1-1 this week. 1 overtime loss. I think that's going to become against the Canes. So yeah, 3 out of 6 points. Not a great week for the Jets, but hey, maybe we'll be wrong because we were definitely wrong last week. Damn, we have too much faith in this team. Ray, well, thank you so much for popping by. Make sure you check out Betway if you're in Ontario, 19 plus for that. Please play responsibly. Make some big bets on the Jets if you can. I was a little disappointed I couldn't make any bets on Sam Gagner to score any points last night, even though I would have lost. I still want to believe in Mr. 89. Ray, where can we find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me at ray.how on Instagram. And again, if you guys have any questions or anything that you want to see featured on the podcast, give us some ideas. So
Yeah,
be
ask some
interesting to
questions
see.
because I dropped the ball this week on questions. So this was just literally fumbling our way through. I think this is one of our best ones lately anyway, so go us. Yeah, check out Ray, ray.how. Check out jetsnation.ca. We are getting articles up on a semi-regular basis right now. And the more of you that visit, the closer we are to making this into a full-time career, the closer we can have to having more friends join us on this silly little podcast. Also, shout out our 6 loyal listeners. Y'all are beauties. You can find me, Angus Hout, on Instagram. Yeah, don't worry about Twitter. I'm not posting there enough. Ray, have yourself a fantastic week. We'll talk to you again next Friday.
Yeah, go Jets, go.
Go Jets, go, and peace and grace on all of you.